What up? So I've made a few videos now on how to set up some private game servers like Minecraft and Agar.io, and each of these private servers require something called port forwarding in order for your friends or anyone else to connect and actually use your servers. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how I would port forward my own router for a Minecraft server, a Agar.io server, and I'm going to throw Call of Duty in there as well so you can see that. So this will just show the basics of how to set up port forwarding quickly, and hopefully you will get started using this video, and if you've done it before, hopefully this will jog your memory. Now, after I show how to set up port forwarding, I will go through a brief explanation of what port forwarding is and why you need it, because I mean, the reason I'm doing this is because most people just want to see it set up first. They don't really care what it is or why it works. So if you do care, then either watch this video all the way through or click the big box that's going to pop up right about now, and you'll jump directly to the explanation, and you can just start this video over. So I'm just going to jump into configuring this. I'm going to use something called portforward.com. This is a great website. It's got guides on how to set up port forwarding for pretty much anything. And how you get there, one, you can either click the link in the description of this video, or you can just Google port forwarding. If you Google that, it should be the top result. Yep, right here, free help forwarding ports, portforward.com. This is going to be your go-to website on pretty much everything port forwarding. Now, where we want to go here is, let's see, where is it? Here we go, port forward guides. This first one, free guides, click on this link, and that's going to pop up this big page of router brands. So obviously you're going to need to know what brand of router you have and what model it is, because you're going to go through these lists and you're going to pick your specific make and model of router. Now for me, I've got a BT Home Hub 4. So I'm going to search this list for BT, and I'm going to use Control F to bring the find window up, and I'm just going to type in BT. So right here, if we click on this link for BT, then it's going to bring us to a page. Well, it's going to pop up an ad first, which is useless. We don't want that. We're just going to close it out. Now this page it took us to has all of the models of BT routers. So we're just going to pick the one that's our model, which I have the Home Hub 4. So I'm going to click on this, and that's going to bring us to yet another list. Now this is the list of tutorials for this router, and these are all the applications, games, whatever that you can set up port forwarding for, and those tutorials are tailored for that specific purpose. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here, we're going to get the one for Minecraft, Agar.io, and Call of Duty, and I'm going to open them up in separate tabs so we can just go through them later, and I'll show you the actual configuration of my router using these guides. So first let's look for Minecraft. I'm going to use Control F again, search for Minecraft. So here we've got Xbox edition, the PlayStation edition, all of these editions. We want just straight up Minecraft server. This is for PC. So, oops, I said I wasn't going to click on it. Let's get the rest of the guides first. So Minecraft server, I'm going to click that with my middle mouse wheel, and it's going to open that up in a new tab up here. So I'm going to do this for all of these games I want to port forward. This time I'm going to look for Call of Duty, and I've got Black Ops 2, so let's get the guide for Black Ops. I clicked on it again. Alright, open that up. Now let's search for Agar.io, and if you notice, there is no guide for Agar.io. So what we're going to have to do for this one, I just clicked on something random. We're going to have to go to the top here, and in the last paragraph of this intro, there's a link that says default guide for this router. If we just click on this link for the default guide, then this will bring up just a general default tutorial. Now the difference between this tutorial and all the other ones is this isn't tailored for anything. This is just the general setup. You have to know what ports you are going to forward before you go through this guide, because this is just straight up general. It's just how to do it. It's not tailored for anything. So we'll use this for Agar.io and these other tailored guides for Minecraft and Call of Duty. So first, let's set up, what guide is this? Black Ops. Alright, so right here, the first step, log into BT Home Hub 4 router. You need to know your router's IP address. You can find it a variety of ways, blah blah blah. So pretty much you need to find the IP address of your home router, and you can do this either using their free software and these links that they've got, or you can just open up your command prompt. So if I click on start, go to my search bar here, and I type in CMD and enter, this will open my command prompt. If you're using Windows XP, you'll click on run, type CMD into the run window, click OK. Same thing, you'll get your command prompt open. So the command we're going to want to type in here is ipconfig, ipconfig, and just click enter. And this is going to list the IP configuration for all of our network adapters. Now, the one that you're concerned with, it's going to be your active one, and it's probably going to be the only one that has all of these sections filled out. But the section that we're concerned with is default gateway. So for me, it says that my default gateway IP address is 10.88.88.88. Now that's going to be the default gateway, well, the IP address of my home router. And this one up here, IPv4 address, this is the IP address of the computer I'm running on right now. So if you don't see a section that has a default gateway filled out, then kind of just scroll through them and find one that does, because one of them has to have this entry, or else you wouldn't be watching this video right now. But that's how you find the IP address of your home router. Now what you do with this is you just type it into your web browser. So I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to go to that IP address. Now this, I'm probably going to blow your mind. I'm lazy. I didn't want to change my home network for this video, so this is actually not going to be the IP we go to. Yeah, I know, sorry, I don't want to confuse you. Let's just pretend that this says 192.168.1.254. Alright, now we're in the BT Home Hub. I'm not going to explain why this is the case on my network, it just is. I'm not going to get into it. But this is the home page for my internet, my DSL BT Home Hub 4 router. Now on your router you might be greeted with a login page instead, where you have to log in. I'm not greeted with that yet. So I'm going to just put this over there and bring the guide up over here. So what's the next step here? Okay, here's it's got pictures. Yep, that's our home page. So the next step is to click on Advanced Settings. Boom. Now this prompts me with my login page. Now for your router, when you go to log into it, you either need to know your password and login name, or where to find it. If you've already set up your router before, you've logged in and you've changed the default username and password, then hope to God you remember it, because there is no help besides resetting your router. And I wouldn't do that, because that will wipe all settings on it, and sometimes if you've got a DSL router, it will wipe your actual internet, like login, username, and password, so you will not be able to connect back to your internet provider if you wipe those settings. I just wouldn't do it. Try to remember your password. If you haven't changed it from default, then hopefully the guide that you're looking at shows you where to find your default passwords or what they are. If it doesn't, then just Google default passwords for whatever router you've got, and they're freely available on Google. So mine's been set up beforehand, so I already know my home router password. Sure, save the password, whatever. So now I'm logged into my router, and I'm going to go to the next step. It says click continue, and then what do we got? Click the firewall link near top of page. Alright, click on firewall. Keep on going here, click manage games and applications. Yep, see that button right here? Cool. Add new game or application. Alright. And enter the name of the program into the application name box. Okay, so I'm just going to do like COD Black Ops. put a dot into the no radio button. Alright, we don't want to copy an existing game or an application. And it says forward ports 3074 on the BT Home Hub 4. There's actually a few sections for this, so it looks like we're going to forward ports 3074, 3478, and 4379 through 4380. Oh, and 27,000 through 27,050. This game has a lot of ports to forward. So we just go through each of these and type them in exactly how they show here. So protocol any port 3074 to 3074, fucking type. Translate that to 3074, 3074. And then we click add. And I'm just going to go through the list here and add all of them. 3478. Actually, I'm going to Control C, Control V. Paste all that in. And what's the other one we got? 4379. Copy, paste, paste, paste. Add. We've also got 4380. Add. Okay, so we've added all of our ports. I forgot to show that. Call of Duty Black Ops. Let's edit. So this is all of the port numbers that we added from this guide. Now it said just click apply, and that brings us back to our games list. Now what's it say here? Next step is to click back to port forwarding. Right here, okay. And next step is use the device box to choose the device for ports to, blah blah blah. Okay, so basically what this is saying is right here, this box, the device box, it's going to let us pick where we want to forward it to. Now, on your router, this is probably going to be, it might just be a box that says enter the IP address. It can either go by IP or host name. It just depends on what router you have. My router goes by the host name, and I'm going to forward it to this unknown host name right here. So host name's unknown, and this number next to it is the MAC address. I'm not going to get into what that is, but this is where we're going to forward these ports onto. Now after that, we're going to drop down our select game or application and look for, the game that we just set up. So I called it COD Black Ops, and we're going to click add. And what that does is it's going to tell our router to forward all of those ports that we manually typed in directly on to that specific unknown device. So Call of Duty should be set up now. That's pretty much it. Once we hit apply, these settings go into effect. Call of Duty will work if it wasn't working before. Congratulations, it's magic. Now we're just going to do the exact same thing for our other things. Minecraft server. Let's see here. I think this is the Minecraft guide. No, that's the default guide. Here's the Minecraft guide. So I'm just going to kind of skim through this real fast. I might not set this one up actually. Yeah, shows the same thing, how to just log into the router, shows the pages, go to advanced settings, firewall, port forwarding. Is it going to have us manage games? Yep, manage games and applications. We're going to add the new game, and we're going to port forward the port 25565. So actually I will set that one up just really fast. This one should be easy. So we're going to manage games and applications. This adds custom ones. We're going to add a new game. I'm going to call it Minecraft, and I'm going to put a number at the end because I've probably already added this a million times. We don't want to copy an existing template for a game or an application. And we're going to go down here and we're going to forward the port 25565. And we're going to paste that across all of these boxes and click add and apply, because that's the only port we need to forward for a Minecraft server. Quick and simple. Back to port forwarding. Device. Gonna choose the same device. Now, actually I'll tell you about that in 1 second. We're gonna select the application for this device of Minecraft. If I can find it. I said it was Minecraft 5555. So I just gotta find it. Yep, right there. Add. And once we apply, Minecraft traffic will be port forwarded to the device that we specified. Now, you need to know what device you're going to be forwarding these ports to. If you're on the computer that you're wanting to port forward to, then you'll just do the exact same thing we did to find our router's IP. ipconfig in command prompt, and this line right here that says IPv4 address, that's going to be the IP you put in if your router port forwards based on IP address. If it forwards based on host name, then look for your computer name. That should be on Windows 7. If you right click on computer and go to properties, then down here somewhere, yeah, right here, computer name, test machine, that will be your host name. If your router port forwards based on a host name, then look for this in your drop down menu. Pretty much you just need to know where you're going to forward these ports to. Okay, so the last thing we want to port forward is Agar.io. I'm actually not going to do this one because I've already shown you how to port forward. Let's see, is this the default guide? I'm just going to show you that the default guide literally is the exact same thing. The only difference is it does not give you specific ports to forward. So for the Agar.io server, if you watch my video on how to set that up, you'll see that we just randomly kind of pick a port number we want to use for our server. And if you've set that server up, you'll know what port it's running off of. Like for me, I picked like 41113 or something. I would just put that port number in my port forwarding boxes, click apply, make sure I've got the correct device that it's forwarding it to, and go with it. And then my friends can connect. Now, actually, speaking of friends being able to connect, they're going to need to know your public IP address, not your private, which is this right here. What you type, or what you get when you type in ipconfig, the IP address of your actual computer on your home network, this is not your public IP. This is what's called a private IP address. This cannot be used on the actual internet. So when your friends connect to your server, they're going to need to know your public IP. And if you go to Google and you type in what is my IP, Google will tell you what your public IP address is, and it might change. So it just depends on the day, depends on your service provider. Sometimes your public IP stays the same forever. Sometimes it changes daily. It just depends completely on your service provider as to what your public IP is going to be and if it changes. So if your friend can connect to your server one day, perfectly fine, and they can't connect to it the next, give them a new public IP address. If your public IP is the same, then check your port forwarding. Okay, so that, I mean, I thought I had more, but that's pretty much it. That is how you port forward. And for your friend to connect, they just need to know your public IP. I'm not going to type in what is my IP in here because I don't want you guys knowing what my public IP is. So just do that for yourself. Just know that your friends have to use your public IP and not your private to connect to your server. So now that we all know how to set up port forwarding, at least on a BT Home Hub 4, on your router, just go through the guides for yours. If you have trouble, send me an email or something, leave a comment below. I'll try to help you with your specific router model. But portforward.com is a great resource for pretty much anything you need to know about port forwarding. So now I'm just going to kind of go through what it is and why you would need it, in case you might not know. So what I've got here is, let me move my camera out of here. Alright, so what I've got here is just kind of a network diagram-ish thing. So down here is going to be, we'll say that's my network. That is what's in my house. I've got my router, my desktop computer, and I've got a server running. And then this is just the internet cloud. We got Google hanging on the internet somewhere. And then this, we'll say this is my friend's house. That's the network he's got, just a router and a computer. So first, I'm going to go through what normally happens when you connect to something like google.com. And then kind of, that should explain why port forwarding needs to be set up. So when you want to browse to google.com, your computer, we'll say we're on my desktop, is going to put together what's called a packet. And that's going to have a few key pieces of information in it, which is going to be a source IP address, a destination IP address, as well as a source port number and a destination port number. So for the source IP address, that's going to be whatever we saw in command prompt, your computer's private IP address. And the destination IP is going to be the IP address of Google's web server. Now the source port number is going to be a randomly generated dynamic port number that your computer just picks. And it's going to be a high number. It's going to be, let's say, like, we'll put source port number is like 50,000. That's going to be what your computer picks as a source port number. Now the destination port is a little bit more set in stone. That's going to be 80. I'll rewrite that. Destination port of 80. Now what 80 means is that it is an HTTP request. In port numbers, how do I should have thought about this before I explained it. There's a range of port numbers. They're called well-known port numbers. It's port numbers 1 through 1023. These are closely associated with certain applications, and HTTP, which is the language for web pages, just happens to take up port 80. So anything with a destination port of 80 is just generally assumed to be a website request. And if you Google port numbers and well-known ports, you can see what application kind of matches up with what port number. But anyway, your computer will put this information into a packet, and it'll send that to your default gateway, which is your home router. Now, this is where the magic happens. This is where some people kind of get confused, because your source IP address is what, your 192.168 whatever address on your desktop. And your router actually, it knows that that's a private IP address. It sees that it's coming from a private IP address, and what it does is it says, hey, this is a private address, it won't work on the internet, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to translate it to a public IP address, which is the IP address of your router that sits on this side, the public side. So all of your computers on the inside of your network using different private IP addresses will get translated down to the exact same public IP in order to go onto the internet. And the way your router discerns between whose traffic goes where on this side is it attaches yet another port number to it, and it'll keep a table in it that says what port numbers go to what hosts. So when you initiate the request for google.com, it'll put together that packet, send it to your router. Your router will translate it to a source IP of your public IP address and send it on to Google. Now when Google gets this request, Google's server is going to take a look at it, and it's going to say, alright, destination IP address is destined for me, that's me, alright, and the destination port number is port 80. Okay, I've got a web server running here, it's running on port 80, so let me just put together another packet, include this website data that it's requesting, and send it back. Now when Google sends it back, source IP is going to be Google's IP this time, destination is going to be your router's public IP. And the source port from Google is going to be port 80, and the destination port is whatever random port number your computer had come up with, or the port number of your router that maps to that computer. So it's going to come back through, it's going to hit your router's going to take a look at it, it's going to be like, oh hey, this was destined for me, it's got my IP, and the destination port is this one. Oh, I've got a table entry that says for this port I should send it to this computer. And that is what happens. You and Google talk. Now where the trouble comes in and where you need port forwarding is, say your friend wants to access a website that's hosted on your private network. So let's say right here you've got a website just chilling over here, listening on port 80. Your friend's going to initiate that request. It's going to go through the internet. It's going to hit your home router's public IP address. It's going to take a look at it, say, yeah, it's destined for me, it's got my IP as the destination, and the destination port is 80. Now your router is going to be like, what is this? I'm not running anything for port 80. I don't have a web server on me. I don't know of any web servers. I've got no sessions or any table entries on port 80. So I'm just going to kill it, just drop it. It's not going to make it past this side of the router on a port that your router doesn't think it's running anything for. So that is why port forwarding exists. So like what we did for Minecraft and Call of Duty, if we did that for a web server and we said that we wanted our home router to forward port 80 onto our server PC, the next time it receives a request for port 80 on its public IP, it'll say, cool, that's my IP address. It's coming into a destination port 80. I'm not running anything for port 80, but I've got this entry that tells me anything I receive for port 80 should be sent here. And that establishes this line of communication. So that, in a nutshell, is why we need port forwarding, and hopefully it makes sense as to why you need it now. If your router, your router is its own like secluded entity. If it's not running a service on a port number and somebody tries to initiate a session on some port number that it's not running a service for, it's just going to drop it. It's going to kill it. So that's why you have to configure port forwarding to tell your router what to do with traffic on specific port numbers. Hopefully you learned something from this, and hopefully I kind of explained it in a way that makes sense. If you have any issues, just either leave a comment below or send a email over to toastyanswers@gmail.com, and I will hopefully help you out with that. Pretty much any question you can ask on that email. I check it all the time. I'll answer it and get back with you. But yeah, like I said, hopefully you learned something and have a good time port forwarding.